Okay, so for now, I'm going to explain to you how to construct an analysis framework, a specific one that is on persuasive strategies. Of course, at this moment, I assume that to make this framework, you will have found a theory that is relevant to be used. Okay, and this is one thing I want you to realize: when you make analysis framework, you don't have to find papers that use the same theory and goes for the same kind of data as you. If that is the case, if there are so many papers, there is no need for you to do the study because other people have studied all about it already. So you just need to find that theory and that topic, but they can analyze other kinds of data. You know, you can analyze persuasion in advertisements, you can analyze persuasion in political speeches, and so on and so forth. Even salesmen talk, you know, it's all persuasion, but the data are different. So you only need to make one kind of analysis framework and you can use it for different kind of studies with certain adjustments. So after the session, you should be able to make your own analysis framework for thematic analysis. And this is called deductive orientation because you start from a framework and then you use it on the different texts. It starts from a rule and go to the specific. So the focus here is only on persuasive strategies. I share with you how I made my analysis framework for the paper that was published in 2018. Okay, I use Aristotle's principles of persuasion. There are many theories of persuasion, but I chose to use Aristotle. Why? Well, he's been around very long and many people are still using his rhetorics until now. This is my paper, Ethos, Logos, and Pathos in University Students' Informal Requests. What did I want to find out? I wanted to find out university students' strategies of persuading their lecturer to grant their request. And I used Aristotle's rhetorical proofs of ethos, logos, and pathos as the framework. I need to explain to you a bit about the study so that you can picture the study before you think about using the analysis framework. First of all, it is a descriptive study because I just wanted to understand how students use persuasion. And the texts I analyzed were from 165 students in the English course. The instrument is what you see on the left-hand side. I will go through that in detail later because this is the analysis framework for persuasive strategies based on Aristotle's rhetoric. How did I collect the data? Well, I was teaching the English course. I give the students small pieces of paper and I asked them to write something to persuade me to finish the class earlier. So then they gave it back to me. So for the purpose of teaching them, I actually typed out their responses and taught them the strategies because that was part of the lesson. Now for my own data analysis for my study, I type it into Excel so that I can code it and then the Excel can help me to count it. So it was easy for me. Now that analysis that I did is based on this framework that you see. Okay. During the analysis, I found that what I have here is not quite helpful because at certain points I got confused. Actually, the student can write one sentence, but it can actually have two persuasion strategies inside there. So I needed to be very alert and I keep referring to this framework because when you get confused, refer to this so that you analyze in the same way. Now let's focus, zoom in on this analysis framework. It is very important to have an analysis framework for validity because if we base it on the very established theory like Aristotle's rhetoric, nobody can question. They can only say, oh, it's so old, why are you still using it? Then I prove it by citing studies that are new and people are still using it. So it shows that it is a very relevant rhetorical theory to be used until now. Now, the analysis framework has to be detailed. Why detailed? Well, if it is not detailed, it cannot give us a good guide in doing the analysis. It has to be detailed so that when it guides us, we can analyze in a very consistent way. And that is reliability, very important. Okay, now, when I made this analysis framework, I searched for all the articles I could find about persuasion. I downloaded them, kept them. I read them for the literature review, but to make this framework, I was very selective. I only went for those who say that they are using Aristotle's rhetoric, and there were only 3 at that time. You can see the 3 here, and they were not on student request. The one by Al-Momani was on student complaint. The second one, Higgins and Walker, was on social and environmental reports. And the third one is a French study on political speeches. So they were not on student request. It's okay, but they were all using Aristotle's rhetoric, and that is what I wanted. Now, this is the first row in my analysis framework. You see Pathos here. This is appeal to emotion. Okay, appeal to emotion defined as mentioning the feelings, the needs, the values, and desires of the target or themselves. And this is taken from number 1, Higgins and Walker, 2012. Now, other people also studied Pathos, and they added more, like Al-Momani says, emotional appeal is also made by using confessing, regretting, and making pleas, and also promising, praising, and thanking. So you see the example here. My student wrote, "Hi, madam, did you get enough sleep last night? You look so tired, but still you are the prettiest ever. What if you end class early today so that you can rest?" So this student was using emotional appeal to get me to finish class early. All right. And coming back to the column with indicators, during my analysis, I realized that when it is emotional appeal, students would use emotive words and adjectives like prettiest and tired, because this is good for manipulating feelings. Okay, so I actually added to this framework as I went along. Then I will go back and check the earlier ones. Did I miss anything or not? Because I must always follow this analysis framework. Next one. Logos is the appeal to reason or logic. I took from Al-Momani. He says appeal to logic is like this. You use argument, logic, justification, claims, data, and evidence. You may also use questioning and wondering, because we use question to get people to think. Appeal to logic is about getting people to think and follow your argument so that you can persuade them. And this French study says, hey, look, if they use factual language when they talk about behavior and action, it is likely to be logical appeal. And they will use indicators like initially, later, finally, because when we make argument, we must connect all the points. So this was very useful, so I added to this framework. You see the example by the student here. Afternoon, doctor, I think we should end class early today because the tutorial room is too hot. There is accumulation of carbon dioxide here, which makes the temperature rise, and it is bad for our health. So the student use science, to argue. This is logos. Next, and the last appeal is ethos, or appeal to credibility and trustworthiness of the speaker or the audience. Can be either one, because when you talk with somebody, there is the speaker, there is also the audience. It is a positive sense. You can appeal to similarity with the audience. We all are in it together, so let's do something about it. Or you can show respect to the target. Sometimes they use self-criticism on themselves. Okay, I give you one example here from the student. We should end class early today because it would show that this note of persuasion has worked, and indirectly shown that doctor's class of teaching us persuasiveness is very effective. So this one, the student is going for my credibility, saying that you are a good lecturer, so we learn very well, so we don't need 2-hour class, we can finish early because you are a great lecturer. So this is going for credibility. Okay, I remember years ago, I saw a big advertisement at the one TJ here. They show the antivirus Kaspersky, and they show this Kung Fu man Jackie Chan because he's strong, so the antivirus software is also strong. And that is trying to link into this ethos. although Jackie Chan doesn't make antivirus, but they use that connotation. Okay, this is ethos. Ethos to me is a bit difficult to understand. So now you see, oh, okay, you have an analysis framework, but it was very hard for me to make this framework. Yes, I finally found 3 articles that use Aristotle's rhetoric. So now I will show you the process of how I made it, because not everybody makes a table like me. So now I already have that table. It is easy for people to see the definition and the examples. From Our More Money, the first article, I took examples of Pathos. I just show some of it here for you. Pathos is persuasion by appeal to emotions, happiness, pity, fear, and this is used to influence people's judgment. From the Jordanian context, confession is a strategy used in complaint letters, because when you confess, oh, I'm so sorry I did wrong, it actually softens the other person's heart. Okay. Praising is another Pathos strategy. Now, from my data from the Malaysian students may not use confession, but they use praising. They praise me, you are the prettiest ever. So they thought that this will soften my heart. Now, in the Jordanian context, they also use religious borrowings, but I think not in the Malaysian context. So certain cultural differences. So when you use other people's analysis framework, you may have to make certain adaptations. Okay. Next, from Our More Money, I also took something about ethos. Ethos is difficult to understand, but I managed to get something here. Ethos shows the morals of the speaker to establish more credibility. Okay, you look at the examples, they're very interesting. I was not trying to cheat because I hate cheating and cheaters. I can never do something like that. It is against my morals. I don't need to do that. My record speaks for me. Now, let me give you just one example. For example, I give a student 0 because I found that he plagiarized and took the assignment from a senior. So now let's say the student wrote a complaint letter saying that Dr. Ting was unfair to give me a 0, and then use this reasoning. You said the student could say, I was not trying to cheat because I myself also hate cheating and cheaters. This is really my original work. And I can never do something like that. It is against my morals. I am a very religious person. And lastly, I don't need to do that. My record speaks for me. You can see that I'm a very good student. All this while, you can check my CGPA. So now this is using ethos because the student is showing himself to be very good and a hardworking student and very morally upright. Okay. So you see the examples really help you to understand something. That was from the first text. Now the second article, Higgins and Walker. Yes, there is a table, very nice. So I took the words on ethos. I also took the words on logos and built it into my analysis framework. And I did cite Higgins and Walker. But pathos, I didn't take much from here because I'm not into metaphors. The student don't use metaphor when writing requests. From the French study on political speeches, I really had to be detective. I looked through the paper here and there. Okay, finally, I found a lot of definitions in the result section. What I have put here is for logos. His discourse is logical as he uses linguistic links such as initially, later, and finally. This was really good. I took this and I put it into my analysis framework and I cited him. For ethos, you can see in the next section, the word ethos didn't appear, but I knew she was talking about the French presidential candidate's credibility. Because I already read a lot of definitions of ethos, I already understand it. So let me read this line to you. The politician underlines that he is aware of the issue and is sure in his own capability to solve the problem. Thus, he is eager to present himself as a strong personality who is ready to overcome all difficulties and complexities. So you see, this person wanted to become the next president of France. So he tells people, I am very great. I am a great leader and I can solve the problems of this country if you elect me. So This is using credibility. Finally, this is summing up now. When you make an analysis framework, you see from this table here, you need to have the different appeals. In my case, I had 3, and we must define it so that other people know the meaning, because other researchers could have slightly different meaning. And here I added something extra, which I call indicators. These are actually more like operational definition of terms for some of it. Like for the pathos, I say that people use adjectives and emotive words. This could indicate that it is emotional appeal. For the logos, I say that people may use linguistic links such as initially, later, because, and so on, because these are used for argument. So I added the extra bit. An example is the last part. That's very important because it really shows the kind of appeal. So as I also told you just now, I added little bits here and there as I did the analysis in order to improve it. But whatever I changed, I had to go back and check that what I analyzed earlier actually does fit this redefined framework. It is very important because in qualitative data analysis, it's not straight line. You move from A to B and finish. You go halfway, you may come back and then you check things. This is how we ensure that the analysis is reliable. So what I have explained to you is the deductive orientation of thematic analysis, because we start with the analysis framework, some bodies framework, which we adapt for our purpose, and then we use it to analyze each of the texts. So for you, if you are starting out new into a topic, it is better you use deductive orientation to thematic analysis. Then you'll be guided by theory and other people's research in the field. If you take the inductive approach, you might miss many things because you do not know enough about the topic. All right. So hopefully with this, you can do good deductive analysis, deductive thematic analysis.